girlfriends. Welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
and Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
All right, guys. So today we have a special guest with us. I'm really excited that she's joining us. Her name is Stephanie Cooper, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me on. Again, like Samaria said, my name is Stephanie Cooper. I am also a podcast host. I have a podcast called Broken Into Beautiful, and it is just a platform where myself and other women come on and we talk about those hard things in life that kind of took us down to maybe even the lowest point in life where we just did not know how we would get out of it, but we were able to. And out of those hard situations became some beautiful stories, whether it was a podcast, a book, your own business, or just healing, that it was just the beauty out of that brokenness. And so that's the podcast. I also have a 30-day devotional for women. It's called Talitha Koam, Little Girl, I Say to You, Get Up. It's just a 30-day devotional where you have a scripture and then we just talk about how to apply that scripture to life. Very applicable, whether you're a teenager, an adult, we all kind of have our struggles and go through some of the same issues. So we have that. Also, I actually have a wine business too. I don't even know if you knew that, Samara.
I did not know that. What?
Yeah. It's called One Hope Wine with Stephanie. And all of that is linked into my Instagram and everything. But yeah, it's just my little other venture to increase income, and also I like to use it to raise money because I do mentor teen moms with the organization, and so however I can raise money for that or for any other causes, I like being out there in the community and helping out any way that I can. And so that's one thing that I like to do with my wine business. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. I did not know that. We'll link everything in the show notes so that way people can easily access the podcast, the book, the one. I cannot believe I did not know that.
That's such a nice surprise.
It really is. It is.
Okay, so we're going to jump into our first segment today, which is called Girl, What's Good? And in this segment, we just talk about things that we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a store, a bottle of wine. So we will let our special guest kick us off with what's been good with her.
I've been trying to figure out like one thing to say, and I just can't. Like right now, the thing I have really been enjoying the most is my life, because I've been through so much lately. And so just having the job that I have, the new friends, living in this new area, hanging out with people and family, of course, wine, music, TV, like I couldn't just pick one thing because I'm just loving all of it right now. So
I love that. Listen, if it's all good, it's all good. And we celebrate that with you.
Okay? Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's such a beautiful place to be in. So for me, my Girl What's Good this week is called Dossier Perfumes. And I don't know if you know this, Samaria, but I've become kind of like a perfume smell good junkie. I feel like within the last 2 years. Yeah.
Why are y'all surprising me today? It's today's surprise Samaria Day.
But yeah, so I love, I guess you'd say the more reputable high-end perfume brands, the most notable ones, Dior, Chanel. I enjoy those. But for me, I don't always like to commit to a full bottle. And I want to get the full experience. I want to try. And I can't say that I'm a perfume connoisseur and I understand all the notes and a perfume sommelier. I don't even know what you would call it, but that's definitely not me. That's definitely not me. I'd say I'm more of an amateur perfume buyer, but I love Dossier because it gives you the opportunity to experience a higher end luxury brand perfume, but it's in a dupe form. So it's not the exact thing. It's somewhat, I would say, replicating it, but not exactly. So it gives you all the notes without the full commitment of the bottle. And in the past, I have tried Scentbird, which is basically like sample sizes of higher end luxury brand perfumes. That I enjoy for like travel, throwing in your purse, but the sizes are still pretty small. So Dossier, I feel like, is a nice in the middle where it's giving you a bigger bottle, and if you really enjoy it, you can go out and actually buy the perfume. But if you get a few sprays in, or even halfway, and you're just over it, you don't feel like you're being wasteful. So yeah, Dossier perfume, that's my what's been good for this week.
I really I've heard about Scentbird, and I really want them to sponsor us in the future. 2022, whenever we make our vision board, I'm gonna have Scentbird on there because I would love that.
Yes. And I used it for a while. And they definitely come in handy. It's good. I just sometimes wish the bottles were bigger.
Yeah. Okay, so my what's good is a YouTube channel, and it's called Wine and Chill. It's this lawyer who reacts to like pop culture cases. So when they had the Jesse Wu and Karen Civil, I think she talked briefly about like Astroworld and everything that's going on with that. Yeah, so she talks about these like headline, lawsuits that are going on, and gives her opinion. She also talks about like, oh, well, this is the likelihood of this happening, and if they want to prove this, here's what they'll have to do. And the last two Girl What's Goods have been law related. I promise I'm not interested in being a lawyer, but I guess that's the stuff that I'm just gravitating towards right now in life. But yeah, it's Wine and Chill with Stephanie, and she just gets on her channel, pulls up, whatever is public knowledge on these cases, and talks about them. And I'm living for it right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know the name of the channel, but did she just cover Dana Chanel?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I have seen her.
Yes, I love her channel. Okay, so what we're gonna do is jump into our topic for today. So our topic is starting over from scratch, starting over in life. And that's exactly why we have Stephanie on, because she has such a wonderful story. So today is gonna be a little bit different. We're gonna have her, share a few things about her journey. And we wanted to do this close to the end of the year because I think she has a really inspirational story. And I think going into the new year, people sit down and reflect on things that are going on in their life. And should anybody be experiencing the things that maybe you've experienced, Stephanie, I would love them to, just be able to have somebody to relate to, have somebody who has gone through those types of things share. And there's one quote from your very first episode of your podcast that I just felt like I had to share. And I know you're a quotes person. But have you ever had somebody use one of your quotes?
I have not.
Yeah, so you said, when you go through all this, you feel like you're buried, but you're not actually buried, you're just planted.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
I thought that was such a good quote. So if you don't mind, would you like to talk about maybe the different areas where you've had to start over?
Ooh, girl. Man. So I was in the military. So you move around and you start over a lot in the military. So that's one area. But I think being in the military kind of helped me prepare for life and having to start over and doing it kind of alone. So when things happen, it's like, oh, okay, I just gotta get past. But one of the major things that happened to me was I got married, and then not even 2 years later, my husband left me, wanted a divorce, and I ended up moving back to Atlanta. I was in Louisiana at the time. I moved back to Atlanta to attempt to get my old life back. And that did not work out so well. I started back with my old job, just trying to get my life back to what it was, but it was like completely flipped over. And I really had to like let it go and start over. And that was a little more challenging than I thought it would be. But apparently I handled it with a lot of grace, because people told me that they had no idea that these things were going on with me, because I was always smiling, always doing things, and just, had really great spirits. But on the inside, I was just torn apart and just, ooh, it was really bad. But I had to realize that it put me in a space where I'm always the one usually giving and doing for people, but having to start over in this manner put me in the spot where now I needed people to give to me and do for me and help me. So it put me on the other end of the spectrum. And I even went through some hard times, like suicidal thoughts and just imposter syndrome, thinking that, and also blaming myself for a lot, and really, really embarrassed that I had gotten married and it didn't even last 2 years. And then moving back to Atlanta with all my friends and family and just kind of hiding. I kind of went into a shell and I started hiding because I was embarrassed. But I kept going to therapy, and therapy was a big factor in helping me with starting over. And I was able to come out of it. And I think June of 2020, I actually left Atlanta and moved up to the DMV area, where now that plant that I was in, how do I want to say this? I was planted, not buried. And now I'm starting to see some blooming and some things coming up out of the soil. So it proves that I wasn't dead. I was just planted, So yeah. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, yes, you did. So, Stephanie, from those different areas where you've had to start over, what do you feel like is the one thing you felt like you would miss once you realized that you had to start over? And it doesn't have to be from when you moved or when you, I guess, were coming upon your divorce. It can be from at any point where you've had to start over.
I would say it would always be people, having to move and make new friends and missing my family. So it would always be my people, my community, whether family, friends, church. Those are the things that I thought about the most. Like, oh, now I got to go through this all over again. It takes me forever to find a new church home. And so, it's the people.
Yeah, I definitely could understand that. So you mentioned earlier how there were some feelings of embarrassment. Do you think that you going through these different time periods of you starting over has made you to feel more guarded or less interested in being vulnerable? Because I think definitely like our friends and super close family, they would be understanding and maybe know more about the situation. But I do know you mentioned in your podcast that you are a very social person. So going through these different periods of starting over, do you feel like it made you more guarded or less guarded? And even today, do you feel like that's different than maybe you felt while you were in it?
I would say in the beginning, maybe with other situations, I felt more guarded. But however, now with the last situation, I don't feel as guarded, and it's easy for me to be vulnerable. I pretty much put my business out to the world on a podcast. So yeah, it's not, I'm not as guarded now. And I'm just like, I feel like I'm an open book. I'm really transparent, and it's not hard for me to open up to people and let them know.
Man, I love that you said that, because I do think having any type of platform really helps with that. Like when I started my YouTube channel, I was a certain way. Now I'm a little bit more comfortable with just like, sharing certain things. There are things that I feel like are still off limits, but like just knowing, hey, someone else can benefit from my vulnerability, it kind of pushes you, if you're a decent person and you want people to learn from, your experiences, I think it does push you to be like, you know what, I'm going to take a step out here and share this with you guys. And hopefully, something comes from it. But I also will say, when I was listening to your podcast, I saw you during that time. So like, as you were talking, I was like, this timeline, like, I'm pretty sure we were at like a Halloween gathering. Was it
Uh-huh.
2019? And I was one of those people who was like, oh, she looks great. It's Stephanie, I'm glad to see you. And yeah, so I guess it goes to show, I don't know what it goes to show. Like, a part of me is like, man, I wish I would have noticed something was wrong, but also what could I have done? So yeah, I guess it goes to show, like, even if you are going through something, sometimes you on the outside, maybe you're good at hiding what's going on, or
Listen,
I
it's
don't
like that. I can't remember the name of the commercial. It's the person commercial where they always have like the stick with the little smiley face on it. So you holding up the smiley face, but behind that smiley face, you're like in tears.
yeah.
That's what that time was like for me. It was like whenever I was around, and like people had to pull me out. And so whenever I was around, I just put that little smiley face on and just pretend like, oh, I'm good. Everything's going good. Da, 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 but that was not the truth. But how could you even have, you wouldn't have known. And a lot of times that's how it is with us. We hide it, and we end up going through things alone because nobody knows, because we're smiling, we're saying everything is fine and everything is good, and it's really not. So we end up going through things alone because they can't tell.
Right. And I was going to ask, because you said you were a person who would always be giving, and then you had to be in a position where, other people would, give to you. Did you find it difficult to ask for help? Like, how was that transition from, oh, I'm the giver, to now I have to receive?
That was very hard.
Hmm.
Like very very hard. I think about when I moved into the apartment, I didn't have any furniture. All I had was what fit in my car, me, my dog, and whatever fit in my car, and that's all I had to my name. And just sleeping on the floor in the apartment and just trying to figure out, how am I going to get through this? It was really hard for me to ask people to help me because I wasn't used to being the one needing help.
Which is so crazy, because if you're that person always giving it, you would think, just for us in general as women who are used to giving and kind of having it all together, you'd think like, okay, well, now is the time when I need it. But those are
Yeah,
the moments where you're like, I really don't want to be asking for
that's
help.
that pride.
It is. It'll sneak up on you.
Yeah. You don't realize how much of it you have until you're in that situation and you're just like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't want to
And
ask.
and if you're a social person, like you mentioned that you were, it's like, do you really want to be that person showing up at events and you're like in a mopey mood, and the event maybe kind of becomes about you. So it's like, yeah, you don't, maybe it's not even hiding, you just don't want to be that distraction as well. And I think
Right.
when you are a giver, you subconsciously think about everyone else's mood and how it's going to affect people. So you just naturally are like, okay, I need to hold it together so that I don't throw off the whole vibe of whatever's going on
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the people who just came to let their hair down and have a good time.
That's very true. Not wanting to be a burden.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you felt like you were kind of hiding from friends and family. Once people, I guess, did find out what happened or what was going on as far as you starting over, how was it handling feedback from family members during that time?
I don't even really remember any kind of, it was just all encouragement or apologies or just empathy or sympathy. I never really got any negativity or even the constructive criticism that could have been given. I didn't even get that. People were just, their heart was just, you know, it was very soft for me at the time. So
I am so glad to hear that, because I
Yeah.
think sometimes people don't know how to read the room. And so, they use those situations as an opportunity to say, well, I always thought, and it's like, sis, this is
Yeah.
not, this is not the time. So the fact that you had like only words of encouragement and like people were showing empathy really warms my heart, because it's like, okay, at least some people know how to act right out here.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even if people couldn't say do anything specific for you, I think that in itself is doing a lot, because even if they couldn't help out financially or be there in person, giving the constructive criticism or giving your unsolicited opinions during a time like that can actually make it harder to push through, because now it's just like an added thing that you're thinking about instead of maybe being strategic about how to start over and kind of what to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something, Stephanie?
Go ahead.
Okay. I am just wondering this, just out of curiosity, but what motivated you to move to a new like city, get out of Georgia completely? What was the motivation behind that? And how's it going?
So I really, really wanted Georgia to be my place. I wanted Atlanta to be the place where I moved there, I get married, I settle down, buy me a house, have kids. But that is not how it worked. Like I struggled from the time I moved to Atlanta in 2008, and I struggled big time in Atlanta, but I just refused to move. And so my mom, she lives in Virginia, in the DMV area, and she's been here for over 10 years. And she's been trying to get me to come up here forever. And I'm just like, yeah, no, that's not, no, that's no, I'm not doing that. So even after I left Louisiana, she wanted me to come then, but I went back to Atlanta. She was like, what is with you in Atlanta? Why do you keep going back to this place? And I wanted it to be it. But I think that last time I was just like, this is not it.
Yeah.
This is not it. I finally had found a job, but then in January of 2020, they're like, oh, we're shutting down. And then here comes COVID. And then it's like, okay, yeah, I can't do this anymore with Atlanta. It's been great. So I just ended up applying for jobs up here, and I got a job. And so in May, I started slowly move. I got an apartment, like everything just fell into place very easily. I got an apartment in May, moved up here in July, and it's just been going ever since. And I absolutely love it. And I was like, dang, why did I fight this so much? I was like Jonah in the whale. Like, I do not want to go to this place. I don't want to be there. I still struggle. This is going to be my second winter. I'm not used to having to still go outside when it's snowing. But I'll adjust. But other than that, it's been really nice, I've met people really quickly, formed friendships, and I actually have a lot of family up here. My mother's here, my sister is here, I have aunt here and cousins here, all throughout Maryland, Virginia, DC area. So I'm not alone. But yeah, I really enjoy being here, and I don't know why I fought it so much.
Ooh, yeah. When when you have a vision for like how you want things to be, it's so hard to like move away from this picture that you've painted. So it's like, and I think also because as adults, we kind of expect, okay, everything's not going to come easy, like we're going to have some tough times. We can kind of chalk it up to, oh yeah, this is just the hard time that I need to get past. And once I get past it, things will be easy. But I've been thinking about that recently. Like, you do not have to struggle. Like everything, I think sometimes people make it seem like, oh, you have to struggle. And we hear success stories where it's like struggle, 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 and then something, hit. But what if it's just easy? What if everything doesn't have to be such a hard battle and things just do naturally fall into place,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And even though you may have wanted to be in Atlanta really bad, I think the struggling experiences while being here kind of takes away from the enjoying the city and what it could be if
Yeah.
it's just not like you just keep hitting a brick wall. And where you're at now, it may not have been where you want it to be initially, but I think between the family and just how things are falling into place, where you're at now is a much better place just because it's easier.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you can describe something as easy, and that you can experience ease. I think that's like, if I could just wish something on everybody, it would be ease,
Yeah. And
Um,
sometimes I think I just read something. It was a quote or something where it stated that if you're afraid to do something, you should probably do it anyway, because it's probably exactly what you need or the thing that you're looking for. Um, and that's what happened with me. Like, I didn't want to move here and I was afraid to move here. And I was just like, what's really going to be different except that I'll be in a different place? I struggled in New Orleans, struggled in Atlanta, and then so I'm like, what's really gonna be different, but it really is different. It is. And the peace I have right now, I'm not saying that life is all sunshine and rainbows. I still have hard times, I still struggle, life is still hard, but um I have a lot of enjoyable moments, a lot more than I've actually had in years. So it's been, and it's so much peace, and I like this feeling.
yes, I
Nice.
like it for you.
So, Stephanie, do you have any advice that you would give to young women who are afraid of starting over?
um, do it anyway, because what what do you have to lose? Especially if you're in a unhealthy situation, or a situation that's not doing you very well. What is the worst that's going to happen? That nothing is going to change, everything is going to stay the same, or it could be exactly what you need. So don't think about it as much, because when we think about it, we think about this whole process, we create situations in our head, and um the way we think also, um it kind of leads to our future. So if you don't really think about it, but just do it, conquer that fear and just do it, because I feel like you have nothing to lose, especially if you're already at rock bottom. Where else can you go but up?
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. I wanted to know, so you've talked about like the divorce where you kind of had to move and leave that situation versus, okay, now I'm, just moving to Virginia and seeing how things go. What is the difference that you felt between starting over because you just had to, and starting over because maybe you wanted a change?
um Starting over because you want to change is not as scary. You're actually looking forward to it, because you need the change, you want the change. So it you're looking more, you look to it, because it's not as scary, because you want something different, versus being forced to start over and you don't know what the future looks like. You don't know how you're going to make it. You It's so many unknowns, and it's still unknowns in the other situation also, but you're not afraid of those because you want the change. It's different being it's different when you're forced into something versus actually making the conscious decision that you want something.
Yeah, you're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
You're in more control of the situation. And I kind of went through something similar to that a few years ago, where I was in a work situation where I knew it was going to have to come to an end. And so I decided to remove myself before, things kind of came to a head so that I could be or feel like I was in more control of the situation and what was to come next in terms of my career.
And the
So,
peace you had with that was, yeah.
yeah, initially it was scary because I was like, man, am I really gonna leave a job where things are seemingly good? But I was thinking like 2, 3 steps ahead. And crazy enough, the company did end up shutting down less than a year than from when I left. I kind of was ahead of it. And my coworkers who had stayed until the end, they were like, man, Miosha, like you definitely said this was coming and you got out of there. And part of it was because, I mean, who wants to be in the job market and looking for a job while you currently have one? Um, no one wants that. But I was thinking in my head, let me do this at my own pace and under my own terms versus walking in and them being like, hey, we're closing our doors. So,
Yeah, that's the other thing. You get to create your timeline when you want the change. You're in control, like you said, you're in the driver's seat. You get to create the timeline versus when you're forced into it, you don't have any control over any of the things that's happening. And it's just a little nerve-wracking.
So I just out of curiosity. So when you think about Stephanie, who, was about to move to New Orleans, and Stephanie now, actually 2 questions. Like, what's the difference between who you were then and who you are now? And what are some things that you feel like you're more intentional about now, having gone through all of these experiences?
Oh man, the growth. um the Stephanie moving to New Orleans was just like so she was blind to a lot of things and impatient and yeah, I would say impatient is the biggest thing, like very impatient. And so now that is not the case. I have grown from that. I've healed and now I am more intentional. I'm still single, but I do want to have a partnership and get married again. But I'm not rushing into it. I am definitely taking my time, and I know what I want and what I don't want, and I know what I'm not going to put up with. And so now, I know that I have the choices. I know that I can make a decision to not stay. um I'm more intentional about my time, so I'm not going to waste my time. um and healing is very important to me now, versus then.
Mm. Oh, wow. Girl, I'm just sitting here like
yes.
saying
So,
yes, right. No, but I absolutely love that. There's something that people say. So I always ask this question because it's something that I always deal with. So whenever anybody has gone through something, um, you'll hear people say, oh, well, like, I'm glad you went through that because now you know, or now you've learned all the lessons. And I have kind of like a love-hate relationship with that perspective. So I want to ask you, do you feel like, oh man, I went through all of this for a reason and I'm so glad I went through it? How do you feel about that?
um Man, that's so I'm trying to figure this one out because I mean, out of this situation, my podcast came. And then I moved here. So there's some good things that came out of it.
Yeah.
However, I wouldn't choose to go through it again. um you know how there's sometimes people will be like, oh yeah, if I had to do it all over again, I'd do it again because it was worth the lessons. No, I would not do it again. I would have waited. Yeah, I would not. I appreciate the lessons that have been learned, the growth, the healing, the products and the blossoms that have come from it, but I would not choose it again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel. I'm like, dang God, like you couldn't have shown me these lessons in any other way. Like,
Okay.
come on, get creative. Give me something.
Yeah.
Hey, like
Right. Yeah. I wouldn't choose to do it again. No. We'll have to
Yeah.
find something else.
yeah.
I do have a question. I kind of wanted to circle back on moving to a new city. So I myself did have relocated as an adult a couple of times to a new city. And so I wanted to get your perspective and just any advice you'd give to young women if they're deciding to relocate. I would say like well into adulthood, not for like college or anything, where you're kind of in a social environment naturally where you'd meet people, build a network, but moving somewhere where you're an adult, single, living by yourself, any advice for young women who may be interested in moving or afraid to move now that, they're kind of out of that phase where they may feel like it's easier to be social?
Yeah. Do your research. Wherever it is that you want to go, if you don't already know someone there or someone that has lived there that can kind of help you figure out the good areas to live in, you really want to do your research. And if you have the opportunity to actually go there a couple of times before you move, just to kind of check it out, spend a weekend, hang out, do some apartment hunting physically there. Do that if you can. Also, depending on what things you need, like social areas or church, organizations. Like I volunteer with the organization, and I look for it wherever I go because I want to continue doing it. So that's one thing that I need to make sure is there. So those things that you want to continue with in your life or activities, search again to make sure that it's available in that city. And don't rush into it. If you have the space and the time to take your time to do it, to really find that perfect place for you, take your time and actually do it. I know it's exciting and you're ready to go and move and try out these new things in a new city, but you don't want to get there and feel like, oh, I rushed into too many different things. So take your time and actually look for the things, the places that you're going to call home. Because you don't want to get there and then you move every year after, because you just, this is not quite it. Let me keep looking. So look in the beginning. Take your time and look in the beginning. And maybe even, their social media is huge nowadays. You can always look for people and make friends before you even get there. And I did that through Instagram. Before I even got here, I met one woman, and she's like really one of my great friends. And but you also have Clubhouse. Like you can get on Clubhouse and just do a room on moving in the area that you want to move into, and meet women or people there that are already there and connect with them. And then when you actually get here or when you visit, you can hang out with them and meet them, and they can kind of help show you the ropes or whatever. So use whatever resources you have.
Yeah.
Okay. I love
Okay.
that.
Because you've lived in New Orleans, Atlanta, and the DMV, which place has the best food?
New Orleans really does have some good food. I gained a lot of weight living in New Orleans now.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna say New Orleans. Yeah.
Okay,
I'd
as
agree.
long as that's not DMV, because I have a friend who lives over there, and she's like, we have better food than Atlanta. And I'm like, girl, I'm not going back and forth with you.
I mean, so you have, like, we're close to Baltimore. The seafood here is pretty good, being close to Baltimore and the water and things like that. And there's some really good places, but yeah, I'm still gonna stick with New Orleans for the food.
Yeah, I've never heard of the DMV being known for food. I'd
No.
have to agree with you on New Orleans. Like you go visit, food is number one.
Yeah.
You're eating the whole time.
Yeah, I could really use some gumbo right about now.
Oh man. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you like this video. Also, our time together does not have to end here. You've heard our thoughts, and we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals Podcast, where we'll continue this conversation throughout the next week. Until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.